Welcome to the Free Range Families Podcast, where we, Britt
and Christina, show you the beauty of homeschooling through a lens of faith
and freedom,
and always a bit of humor.
So we are going to talk about why you should homeschool.
Why?
And it's not because you want to sleep all day.
Although that's nice sometimes. No, I don't. I don't know what that's like because I don't sleep all day.
No, some people do.
I have an early bird.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's so many reasons.
Yeah,
to
but I'm
homeschool.
gonna read 16 reasons, and then you're gonna take why you homeschooled. Are you ready?
All right.
Okay,
I'm
I'm firing. Indoctrination, dumbing down youth, sexualizing children, data mining and profiling students, a one-size-fits-all idea of schooling, inmates of government schools. It means you're hostages. I drove by the prisons. Okay. Globalist agenda, removing parents' rights, which is a huge thing, teaching fake history and pseudoscience, radical labor unions, safety, epidemic of violence, suicide, and depression, zero discipleship, socialist agenda, downfall of critical thinking, government controlled, BLM, CRT, comprehensive sex ed, SEL. Okay, that's a lot to unpack.
That's a lot to unpack.
And I could keep going.
I know.
But what are, I don't know, maybe two? Why did you start homeschooling? You don't have to pick from that list. Just tell me.
So our two main reasons probably were the fact that we wanted the freedom to be able to live our lives the way we choose to. Both my husband and I are entrepreneurs. We own our own businesses. We travel. We do things. We work from home. So we wanted to show our kids, hey, we don't live life according to like the 9-to-5 rules.
Yeah.
And we just want them to have that ability to do that as well, because I can see them doing that in the future. Like kids of entrepreneurs often follow that route. So.
And there's a whole nother branch to why college might not be a good fit or why it's not useful.
And it's funny. Like I used my college degrees in alternate ways,
yes,
but my husband, who has literally the same college degree as I, or at least the same bachelor's degree, he never touched it. And he's like, I wasted that time.
Yep.
And my parents' money.
Oh, and tons of money. Yeah.
Whereas I wasted my time and all the grants and loans and all that stuff that we had to repay.
I had to take a second out on my house to pay back my student loans.
So, it's just, we wanted to show them, hey guys, there's an alternate route. We live that alternate route. So let's do that. And then the other main factor was the way my children were being educated. And we just weren't finding the fit that worked for both of them. Zen, my teenager, he's very intelligent, but he's very creative. He has a lot going on. He's capable of quite a bit, but his main focus is his music and his creativity. And we wanted to foster that. And yet he still has that very logical entrepreneurship kind of mindset.
I think we birthed the same human in different bodies.
I know. And then my younger one, like I said, twice exceptional. He has a lot of executive functioning issues that we were working through. He's got a heart of gold, and he is a little genius when it comes to math and facts and history. He loves that, but he struggles with other things. And I was just over and over, my husband and I just saw he was getting in more and more trouble at school.
You get to a point where you think there's got to be something better than this. Like this can't be what we're supposed to be doing.
Right.
Yeah.
And we were seeing that light. He had always, from little age group, or his young age, he always had that light for learning. And we were seeing it starting to dim. And that was only in 4th grade. So for 5th grade, that's when we made the decision, we're going to do this. And we actually put it out to the boys and we said, let's make a pros and cons list. And they were the ones who in 5th and 7th grade said, we want to homeschool.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you started like around fifth grade-ish kind of with them. Because
Yes.
I noticed that downfall with Ryan when he was like in 2nd grade and was like, oh, heck no, this is not happening. My little rain boots, cowboy hat kiddo is now wearing like all this name brand gear and he's losing his identity because he's trying to fit in.
Well, our situation is very different because we moved around so much.
Yeah.
Zen actually started kindergarten and first grade. He was homeschooled because where we lived in Pennsylvania, it was almost a 40-minute drive to the elementary school. And the bus picked up high schoolers and kindergartners on the same bus. And we were like, that's not happening. So we homeschooled him for kindergarten and first. Then we moved to New Jersey. We put them in the public school system. It was a very great public school system. And again, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't working. They were in there for 2 years, and we pulled them and put them into private school. The private school was in many ways excellent. It was a much smaller private school, but Zen was starting to kind of age out of that, and we then decided to move to Arizona. We put them in a Christian school here, and then it just they needed that year here because it was 2020.
Yeah, moving is tough.
It was,
and you can't. Yeah,
it was chaos.
Without a really cool homeschool group.
Yep,
it doesn't work.
That's true. And so then we pulled them. So we've had a lot of different scenarios.
Yeah,
like I said, we're like gypsies. We just keep moving and changing
you can't move,
and
though,
finding.
Right now,
Not
you're
now.
stuck.
No, now we have the greatest group. So we're
okay.
good. And what about you? What are your two biggies?
So I'm looking at this list, and there's so many reasons that I could tell parents why they need to homeschool because I'm a huge believer in that. But for us, it was the one size fits all kind of mindset of homeschool where kids were really boxed in, and then if you weren't, you fell through the cracks, or it just wasn't. They slogan everything like tailored to fit your children. It's not tailored to fit your children. And inclusivity, it's really exclusivity. It's like completely flip flopped. So that was a big thing. It just wasn't fitting, and my kids were, because of this one size fits all, they were losing that magic that I saw when they were little, like being their own independent. Ryan was starting to become, I think we've talked about this too, a little bit more concerned about what his peers thought about him. And it's not a terrible thing, but when it changes your entire, personality, that's where moms and dads should be like, hey, something's not right. And then I couldn't stand the testing. I would say that from a faith perspective, I didn't like the fact that you couldn't teach the Bible, but yet you can teach humanism. So, you have this separation of church and state. It's not really a separation because you're still teaching a religion, right? You're teaching anti-scripture or humanism. So that's where I had a really hard time with. If we're going to teach that everything comes from slime, then we can teach creationism. You know what I mean? Like we're trying to teach our kids how to think critically. And so you have to give them all the perspectives, like hand them a Bible, hand them this book, hand them this thing, and then they can come up with what they want. We're supposed to be like devil's advocate, right? We're supposed to be able to have a conversation. So it was really this, like, I just felt like they were dumbing them down, and there wasn't. And from a teacher's perspective, that's where I was like, you see the bureaucracy behind closed doors, and you just can't. I couldn't deal with it any longer, and I think I dropped the bureaucracy bomb in an interview because at that point I was like, if we're going to do this, and we pulled them out of our public school and put them in charter school. I interviewed and I said something about not being able to just say the pledge or not being able to do this, and I didn't get the job, which is not a bad thing.
Not a bad thing.
Looking back on it, I was like, I wonder if that's why I didn't. Yep, that's why I didn't get that, because I wouldn't play the game. And in fact, I had a mentor teacher tell me that if I wanted to move up the system, right, I need to get a master's degree. I was like, I already paid $60,000. Like, I don't need another degree to make another $5,000 a year. And I need to work up the ladder. I need to play the system. I'm not that kind of person.
Yeah.
So I don't do that. And so the lack of convictions, just like, hey, we're here to teach and help children think, not teach them what to think or how to think, So that's why I left. But now looking at this, massive list, I think parents should be concerned about their rights.
Parental rights, absolutely.
That's top of the line for me. I mean, you have, what did Newsom just decided that you can, that parents don't need to know if their kids change their pronouns or gender identity in school. Like it's not a.
But see, what I don't understand, and so my perspective is a little different than a lot of people. I am a first generation American. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
I am first generation born here. My parents were not born here. My grandparents came over when my parents were little from Ukraine when it was under the USSR, communist rule. They went through all of that. And I grew up with stories from my grandparents and my parents of socialism and communism and seeing the warning signs, like how can you not see the signs of it is a slippery slope? The little things, well, this one thing gets taken away and this other thing gets taken away.
Pillars of socialism before it's all.
When I was teaching, it would have been unheard of back when I was teaching a decade ago, which is not that long of a time.
I know.
A decade ago, it would have been unheard of for a teacher to not inform a parent about something like that. I mean, I used to have to inform parents about the tiniest little things that happened in my classroom.
Yep.
And now to look at it and go, well, that's not a parent's right to know.
Well, because
no, it is.
It's planned. So there's my whole other thing. It's purposefully happening the way it's supposed to be happening. They want to snip that, the ties between parents and kids as soon as possible and then take it even further. And now we've socialized healthcare and all this other stuff that's happening in schools. But they want to cut that bond so that, you aren't.
Because the nuclear family is looked down upon.
Yeah.
Kids need.
We're in a weird
parents,
time period.
Kids need the nurturing of their mothers. They need the strength and the discipline of their fathers. Yep. They need we play roles that come naturally. Now, I'm not saying that women can't be strong.
Oh, no, we're very strong.
We are very strong, independent.
Yeah,
if you ask our husbands, they're like, okay.
Yeah.
But we are definitely more nurturing.
Oh, yeah. We left our jobs to raise our children. So there's that was a huge epiphany for me was, hey, my job, I have a little one. I'm supposed to be at home with him. He's not supposed to be calling the babysitter mama. I need to come home and I'm willing to take that sacrifice. But there's also so many other dynamics. We live in a world where both parents have to work. So, but it's very planned, things happen. And I think that they have a plan behind the scenes.
Well, yep. But that's a whole other podcast.
Yes.
But I think, like you said, that one size fits all, you can easily see that does not work. No. It didn't work when it was starting, 15 years ago, when I remember that all of a sudden inclusion was differentiated instruction and inclusion. Those were the key words 15 years ago. And we tried it. And the thing is that it came about because they were saying, well, some teachers are just letting them fall behind. Okay, there are good teachers and there are bad teachers. There are good cops, there are bad cops. There are good lawyers, bad. Every profession has people who are great at it and has people who really, get out of this profession. You don't belong here.
Well, and the sad part is you have teachers that are fully invested and they're crazy good teachers and they don't want to leave because they feel for the kids and they feel it's a responsibility, but it's also a fiscal responsibility. They cannot leave. They cannot figure out a way out.
And what I've seen in the past 10 years is more and more good teachers are leaving the system because they cannot. I will flat out admit there's no way I could handle being a public school teacher right now with the
I'd probably
bureaucratic.
Get fired.
Yeah, I'd be fired. I'd be like you need to retire now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
But I think that really is we're dumbing down our kids.
Oh,
we're
100%.
dumbing down our kids by all the testing, by the standardization of I was just talking this summer in our summer pool swim team.
Yeah.
I was talking to a bunch of parents that had kids graduating 5th grade.
Mm-hmm.
5th grade. And they were telling me about the sheer number of days of standardized testing the elementary kids were doing.
We were doing formatives every single Friday. And first and second grade, you came in and you tested every single Friday. It's just regurgitating facts. Yeah. That's the other thing is I don't know if you've read John's book, Dumbing Us Down.
No.
It's one of my favorites. But he says in there that kids shouldn't be placed in groups with distinct ages because then they don't. So this is a different with homeschooling. They're with all sorts of different ages. So my 13-year-old might be best friends with a 15-year-old, but they don't get that experience or that connection in a public school environment. And then you said something and it went and then floated off. And I can't remember what you just said about something. And it was such a good point.
It was a great point, but I don't know what it was.
We were testing every Friday for the little kids. And so then I remember one of my mentor teachers, and she became a principal, came in and was like, and I was trying to do all this really cool, like get them thinking early in the morning, let's do. And I thematically taught. So I was doing a themed unit or that kind of thing. She's like, no, you just throw the paper on their desk and let them fill it out. And it was like mindless. It had nothing to do, like it wasn't linked to anything. It was just nonsense learning. Mm-hmm. So that's what John says in his book is like, you will make all these different dishes for Thanksgiving, right? But what's the point of learning how to make a pumpkin pie if you don't know why you're going to eat it? And it all comes together at the Thanksgiving dinner table. But in public school, they teach you all these different things and they don't make sense together.
Right.
So then you're left with like, oh, I know what a cumulonimbus cloud looks like, but I have no idea why it's formed or
what that means in terms of what the weather is going to be like.
There's no synchrony to any of it.
Right. It's memorization. It's rote memorization. That's all it is. It's
like regurgitation
learning
of facts,
but not understanding the facts. That was like one of the things that when we decided to homeschool. So my husband and I split our homeschooling. He handles math and history. He is a history buff and he is a math genius. So he does all that because not my forte.
Oh, I love it.
I'm the science person, language arts, extracurriculars. And one of the things I love seeing is him teaching our boys history because he had a very different public school experience than I did. Mm-hmm. So we both grew up in public school systems. My public school system where I grew up, and our towns were 20 minutes apart. So it's kind of crazy that so different though.
I'll have to tell you something after you're done.
I was in the ghetto. He was on the good side of the tracks.
I have a weird story about how my husband and I, like we were synced before we met each other too. Yeah.
See, and we weren't. He had such a great public school experience that when we actually talked about homeschooling, he was very hesitant. He wasn't
Jimmy.
against it, but he was
Jimmy
hesitant.
Was too. Yeah.
And then it took him time to turn around and just looking at the facts and talking about the experiences. But my school, definitely a little more ghetto, like huge school. My high school, I think was like 5,000 kids. It was insane. I was one of many. So, and it wasn't the greatest experience. I mean, that's why I graduated 2 years early just by leaving and getting my GED because I was like, I'm out. I'm going to college.
I've been there. Yeah.
But he had a great experience. And one thing that stuck with him is he had a history teacher that didn't teach them the facts, that taught them history through stories.
Yeah.
And so that's what he does with our kids now. He teaches them the history through stories. So
the best way to learn
kids may not be able to, they may not be able to throw a date out there.
Yep.
But you know what they can do?
They can tell you what the Magna Carta was for.
They can tell you what started. You say, tell me what started World War I. And they're going to go into the whole history. Like you start talking, you can throw out a name for them and they're going to tell you who that person was, what kind of influence they had. They may not be able to tell you the date of.
Yeah, but they're learning cause and effect and not just regurgitating facts.
Absolutely. And they're able to critically think and put the pieces together and connect the dots. And that's what I think we're missing now in the school system is we're missing that critical thinking element because so many teachers, and I'm not putting this on teachers doing a poor job. Some of them are.
But they're
not allowed to.
Yeah, but the ones that are doing a poor job is because they're like, hey, I'm getting paid how much? And you want me to do what? So you go into teaching to inspire and, lead a group for the next generation and really try to get them to think so that we have better humans, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And they can think better and they can be more productive in society. And what is happening, teachers' hands are tied, like you said, so they quit. They just are like, okay, here's your worksheet. And we're testing again on Friday. And, that's how it works. No, it's interesting because Jimmy and I, before we We met each other. It's been like 24 years. My aunt and uncle were in like pool plastering, and I grew up in Tahoe, so like Reno, Tahoe area. And so we didn't, but they lived here in Tucson. And Jim, my husband's father, was also in the pool industry. So like before we even knew each other, they were all in the same industry. Yeah, that's weird. But he had a really good experience too in public school.
Right.
And he loved it. And he loved this. He's a social butterfly, and he loved like all of the stuff. But he also didn't have to apply himself like I did, like the AP classes, like you must get A's and, you know, all this stuff, because he became a great baseball player and knew he was going to get drafted. So he didn't have to do all the things that I had to do. You know, he could just come to chemistry and get an A. I don't know how that works.
I don't know how that
but
works.
it worked for him. So, and I didn't like any of it. I didn't like being boxed in. I was, you know, but I have a theory about kids like us that are like in the GATE classes, and they put us in those classes. I don't know if you're in GATE. This is like same.
Yep.
Okay. They put us in those classes, right? Because we're the ones that they can't control, I guess. We aren't being numbed down so, you know, easily. But then out of that percentage of the kids in the GATE classes that they want to like streamline to the FBI or the CIA, there's still some that are not controllable, and we're the ones that left.
Right. We love the system.
Yeah. I'm full of conspiracies, but I don't actually think that's a conspiracy. I think it's actually a thing. So I think out of like the 16 things we listed, those would probably be boxed in. But now we're in a totally different world. Like you said, from 10 years ago when we were teaching, or longer than that, you have things in schools. There's litter boxes in schools.
Yeah, don't get me started on that.
Okay.
I mean,
I don't even know what to say about that.
I don't even know what to say about
like what?
that.
It's not even.
But I mean, I hear from friends that have kids in 6th grade that kids are having sex in the bathroom.
Oh no, 100%.
And I'm like, no, 6th grade, like they're babies.
That's because they have the same bathrooms, or they share a sink, and it's like, hey, meet me in the stall.
Kids are being forced. It's this hedonistic society that we're having, and I've talked about this with my kids too. Is that kids are being treated like adults way too early. They're being told things and being forced to talk about stuff that they're kids. We have our whole lives to deal with those things. Let's keep them innocent. And that's not being, and I say that to people and they're like, oh, you're sheltering them. It's like, yes, that's my job, actually. I do want to shelter.
You're sheltering them to a certain perspective. You're doing it at developmentally appropriate levels. That's the thing, is we don't teach a 5-year-old what contraceptives are. You know what I mean?
Like, they don't need to know.
Right? So we're not going to get into that. You're doing it at developmentally appropriate spots. Right. And that is not sheltering or bubbling. That is just good parenting.
Kids, the way we have our brain developed, they need to develop appropriately. They need to, before they are thrown into adult situations, they need to have certain connections actually forming in their brains that they're not there yet until they get through certain stages of their growth and development. A man's
frontal lobe doesn't develop until he's like 34. I realized this at 34. Okay. Well, on that, we have to end with a quote, right?
Yes.
But there's two. So I'm going to pick one and you're going to pick one.
Great.
I think I picked both of these.
So which one are you going to read?
Well, I know Diane Douglas.
Okay.
So I would like to take her quote. And Diane Douglas, this is a shout out to you. She was a former superintendent of public instruction for Arizona. And she's a wonderful lady. And she wrote the foreword for Alex Newman's book, Indoctrinating Our Children to Death. So she says this in her foreword in that book. It says, both sides have allowed education to become mere schooling to be used to their own ends. The socialist left wants unquestioning little Marxists, social justice warriors, to blindly follow and advance the political agenda against America. Whew, unpack that. And the capitalist right wants unquestioning little worker bees, human capital with just enough job training to meet the current needs of their industries. So to me, this puts in perspective, and this is what I'm trying to say, is I think the public school system is working the way it was intended. I do think it was purposeful. And like historically, if we go back to Dewey and kind of things like that, you can see this. But she puts it in perspective that there are both parties that want to dumb children down so that they can fulfill their needs. And we can talk about like industrial revolution and stuff. That's kind of what happened. But I love how she puts that in perspective for parents too, so they can see this isn't just like
it's not a left
homeschool
versus
parents.
right thing.
No, well, we're not just the crazy group that don't want to play the game. We don't want to play the game because we want our children to rise above.
Yeah, we want better than the game.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you have to do the next one, though.
Right.
I popped that one in.
You did, but it's a great quote. So this is a John Taylor Gatto quote. Government schooling made people dumber, not brighter, made families weaker, ruined formal religion with its hard sell exclusion of God, set the class structure in stone by dividing children into classes and setting them against one another, and has been midwife to an alarming concentration of wealth and power in the hands of a fraction of the national community.
Ooh.
Oh, that's a really good
No,
one.
it's so good because if we follow the trail of money, and that's a whole nother.
But it's true. You do see this. You see that it's not, we are, when you look at statistics, and I love when people come at me with homeschooling of, well, what about your kids getting into college? What about your kids being, CEOs? And I'm like, well, first off, my kids are going to
laugh.
Yeah. But
yeah.
Statistics over and over and over prove that homeschooled children generally test better.
Yeah.
They interview better. You start talking
But you mean
to
they can
people,
shake somebody's hand and
look
make
them in the
eye
eye?
contact and
Right. They can have eye contact. They can carry on a conversation
Yeah.
with people of all ages.
Yeah.
They can actually
show empathy to little children and respect to elders.
correct.
Mhm.
But I mean, you look at just college entry
I totally
statistics.
cut you off.
You totally did.
I'm
But
sorry.
college entry statistics, they look for homeschooled students because they know they're going to be hard workers. They know how to manage their time. They know how to actually apply themselves because they have to do it on their own as opposed to here's all of this information here. Just do this, handed to you.
Yep.
So it's a whole different viewpoint.
Well, and that plays into our shirt. We have to show you the shirt that we love. And this is because I totally disagree with the village mentality. I'm not opposed to Christina helping me with rides. That's not what I'm talking about.
I'm not opposed to the village. I'm just opposed to the village being told who my village is. I want to pick my village.
Oh, yeah. No, okay. I like that. I do want to pick my village. You are part of my village, and I'm totally okay with that. But if I don't have a say in who the village is, it's not working.
My kids are not your kids. My kids are not the government's kids.
No.
I don't co-parent with the government
Nobody either.
or society.
Yeah.
Nope. Sorry.
Are you sure we're not going to get banned for this
We're
podcast?
totally gonna get banned for this.
Okay. All right. Signing off, and we will sign back on.
Oh,
What?
wait, before we sign off, speaking of,
Yeah.
we've had these matching shirts, but I just want to put a little plug out because we have a whole merch store.
Oh, yeah. You have to link that, right?
I do.
And then-
We have a whole merch store of really cool homeschooling based shirts and hats and cool things because generally the stuff out there is
I'm looking at the camera and making a
kind of-
freaky face. It's
kind of-
not so
it's kinda
good.
lame. It's kind of lame. So we made really cool stuff, very vintagey, very cool. I'm a design person, so
The ideas.
you're the ideas, and then I take your ideas and I make them look.
Sounds good. All right, now signing off.
Now we're signing off.
Okay.